Thank you, Tanya. Uh, right. Thank you for joining and listening in. I am going to be sharing information about Friends of Chintsa, and my name is Samantha Bailey, and I am currently the interim chair of the board of Friends of Chintsa. It's a very tiny organization. It only has one administrator, very part-time, that's paid. Everybody else is voluntary. Um, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about us and what we're doing also in connection with the virus tonight. So first up, just to really thank the Expedition Project for this opportunity. And yeah, please, if you can, remember to check out their website and also Friends of Chintsa as well. And then I'll dive into telling you a little bit about the project. So Friends of Chintsa, which we shorten to FOC, is a small organization based in the village of Chintsa, which is the Eastern Cape of South Africa, about 45 kilometers northeast of the city of East London. And it's known as Monty by the Xhosa people. And the organization has been going for a while now and been through various iterations. And how it is operating at the moment is basically as an enabling platform for community members who want to initiate and run local projects, but they don't want to have to set up an organization with all the bureaucracy that brings. And at the same time, they want some stability to their work. So Friends of Chintsa is a registered non-profit organization as well as a public benefit organization, which means that all the finances go through normal due diligence processes, and it's also has a 100% broad-based Black economic empowerment as standing in the social responsibility category. So so it enables someone who wants to do a project in the local community to ask to join us, and the board checks out what they're wanting to do and who it's going to serve. And hi folks, I've just launched right in. So let me know if I need to start again. Let me know in the comments if I need to start again. But I was just saying how Friends of Chintsa operates as an enabling platform for people who want to do projects locally, and it gives them the ability to raise funds for their projects, because it can go through Friends of Chintsa's setup, and then be able to do much more small scale projects than would otherwise be workable without going and setting up a whole organization and getting all the required permissions and that, which can take quite a while and is pretty onerous. So the main projects that are currently on the go are the Unstressed Surf School, which, as it says in its name, is a surfing project encouraging youth in the community to get into the ocean. Sometimes it's involved in helping them learn how to swim first, and then it's really getting them to enjoy the ocean that is on our doorstep here, and in the process learn about teamwork and other soft skills as well. Another project is the Uniform Project, and that raises funds to supply local students with and learners at school with uniforms, shoes, as well as sanitary pads, the reusable kinds for the young women. And that has been going for a while, is very steady, and provides just much needed support for learners in the area. There's two others more sport-oriented projects. One is the Chintsa Runners, and that promotes running for physical and mental health. And it also organizes a run every year here in the area through different both wild areas and lands belonging to farmers and other local people. And those funds go towards the competition fees for locals to enter into competitive running events in different parts of the country, which often opens up new opportunities for them. And then the other big sporting group is Chintsa United, which is our local soccer team. And this is a project run by Songezo, who is their coach. And it's in a sense a sort of light mentoring of young men in the community and giving them an option to be more constructively active and hopefully less inclined towards destructive drug and alcohol type activities. And they've been going since late 2018. Last year they formally entered the main local small league in East London, and they won, which was pretty cool. And one of their players has actually been given a chance to try out for a national professional league. Of course, all of that is on pause because of the virus, but he remains hopeful. I saw him the other day, and he's still hopeful. And then there's two other projects, more kid-related. One is Bare Necessities, which is a group of local and international knitters who make toys for local children and create Christmas boxes to give gifts at the end of each year. And then also Jam, which is a project delivering very highly nutritious porridge powder that just gets mixed with water. And it's for feeding little children and primary school learners 5 days a week during school term. So those have been the main projects that Friends of Chintsa has been involved with. We've had an approach for one that has much more of an environmental leaning. It's the Green Coast Stewards process, but that's still in discussion. And then just recently, because of what's been happening in the world and the country, we've had the yeah, thank you. The project names are creative. We've started, this is a very long name, the Chintsa COVID Community Support Program, which the local community just calls COVID-19 for short. So just in case you're not aware of the situation in South Africa, since early March, our government started to really take the situation seriously and very quickly closed international borders and started to put other restrictions in place. And then from late March, we've been in a very significant, serious lockdown to the point of not being able to even walk or go for exercise outside. And that lasted 5 weeks until last Friday. And that was called level 5, which was regarded as the most extreme. We've now gone into level 4, where there's a little bit more movement allowed and a little bit more economic activity, but still pretty restricted. And that this could continue for a while, is the sense. And what that has done has really put a pause on most of the program activities. We're in a sense fortunate in that our government responded so quickly, and thus I just looked at the stats today, and as of yesterday, late yesterday, we had tested over 250,000 people. We have nationally just over 7,000 confirmed cases, and in the Eastern Cape 814. And then we've had 138 deaths nationally, and in the Eastern Cape 17. So in comparison to other countries, we've been relatively lucky so far, quite possibly because of the quick action of our government. And in some ways, this caught, I think, a lot of South Africans by surprise, because our government has been so organized about this at a national level, and they're working so well with scientists and making really bold, strong decisions, and we're seeing collaboration across departments like we've never seen before. Um, the somewhat expected, if also slightly disappointing aspect, is that it doesn't filter all the way through to the ground. And part of this is just because of the size of and scope of the challenge at hand, and because there's been also a lot of inefficiencies and incapacities and corruption throughout the government system. And so the Eastern Cape, our province, is regarded as not having a very good public health system. And we're seeing some of the impact of that, to the point that the National Minister a few weeks ago actually appointed one of his national people to take over the area around Port Elizabeth, the biggest city in our province, where the virus was spreading particularly rapidly, and he wasn't confident with how the Provincial Department of Health was handling it. So we have pockets of folks in the Department of Health doing really good work, but there's also a lot of inefficiencies. And so back in March, when I was learning about the virus, I realized that our community could be really vulnerable. And so I initiated a project that initially was just a couple of friends and I getting together and talking about what we could do. One of these friends is a health practitioner as well. And I thought of it would be fairly low-key, just awareness raising and figuring out different kinds of support to provide locally. And then we realized that as we had more and more volunteers join us, and the sort of the scale of the challenge locally became more apparent, that we were going to need more stability and also funding. And so I went to Friends of Chintsa board. I took myself out of the decision process and asked them if they would accept the COVID-19 project as on their platform, which they delightfully approved. And so that is currently the main project of Friends of Chintsa that has been running the last few weeks, and pretty much all of the board members are involved, all voluntarily. No one is getting paid for any of their time on this project. There's also about another 15 people in the local community involved as what we're calling health helpers, and they are going around surveying homes and getting information on folks who have medical conditions that are vulnerable to the virus and on medical treatment, which also means that they should be eating well, and also obtaining information such as, do they have access to running water and toilets, etc. We're probably about 90% of the way through doing that survey, and the information so far is both enlightening and scary. We're looking at about 60% of people not having access to running water other than communal taps, using the bush as their toilet, living anywhere from... we have some shacks that are just one person in a shack. We also have some that are 6 to 9 to 12 people in a shack. So you can imagine how difficult social distancing is. And people have also been economically affected drastically. And so we initially were in the serious lockdown for 3 weeks, and then the government about 2.5 weeks in said that they were going to extend it for another week. And right around that point, the hunger kind of started to hit. And so folks started to raise funds in a variety of ways to get parcels into the community. But it turns out that's quite a tricky thing to do well, because there's lots of local political dynamics. And we have local councillor elections next year, and some individuals in the community were using food parcels as a way to basically try and garner support, voting support. And so we had some individuals who were watching this and concerned because they saw the parcels not being distributed fairly. they approached us and said, please would we consider utilizing our group of volunteers to help figure out a fairer system, and also the fact that we were doing these surveys. We had to start the surveys all over again because we realized the initial surveys weren't oriented to helping with food parcel distribution, and we had to add a whole bunch of extra questions. And we also had parcels coming in, and we couldn't ask hungry people to wait while we finished the survey and got all the households done and then could work out who really needed it. So it's been a process of building the ship as we sail it, which is hugely chaotic. We have sometimes spent up to 48 hours debating who should be getting food parcels, because they're hard decisions often. Who is the most need out of a variety of households that have been identified. And it has been exhausting sometimes, but as well as just feeling like we're navigating through this sort of political minefield. But it's at a point now where we think we've addressed the bulk of the need in the village for this moment. And we're hoping that with the government increasing social grants to people who are getting pensions, disability grants, or child grants, as well as a small, but at least it's something, unemployment grant that they're now setting up, that this will help alleviate need as well to an extent. But we do expect that we are going to need to continue to help with distribution of parcels over time to watch those that sort of fall through the gaps in the system. And we also anticipate that the amount of donations will slowly drop as well, as people's own economic situations possibly get tighter. So we're going to need to become more careful about how we do it. And then there's also planning for how we deal with quarantining setups and approaching different local tourist establishments to see whether they'd be willing to open up their premises to let folks staying in incredibly overcrowded situations into their properties, and also look at what additional health support we need to try and get into the communities for this virus. It's a lot. We're running by the seat of our pants. We're having to sort of really figure this out as we go, and I'm very grateful that there's such a beautiful team of people around who are putting in a lot of time into this right now to see how we can support the local community. And we've just had this window of opportunity to kind of catch our breath and figure things out before the virus starts to run through. Because at this point, we do not know of anyone locally who has the virus. So we're not anticipating it to stay that way. We know that at some point it will be here, and then it will start to run through the community. But we're sort of trying to strategize to be as prepared as we can be, which again will be imperfect and chaotic, but it will be something. So sorry, that's a lot. That is the overview currently of the main focus of Friends of Chintsa for now. So I'm going to wait and see what questions, if any. Yes, I'm quite tired, I have to say. Thank you. The one thing we are aware of is that food parcels are not sustainable in the long term. So we have been looking at the local spaza shops, and we were working with, these are tiny little stores, often out of people's homes, and you'll walk up to a wall and there's a window with a grid in it, and you ask for what you want and they'll pass the food to you and that sort of thing. So actually they're relatively easy to become more virus safe. But we're trying to get them to consider buying supplies from local farmers more to have healthier food available, and also to see if we can get seedlings and encourage people where they have fences, because there's lots of goats and pigs roaming around, to grow their own food. So that's one of the sort of longer term things we're looking at as well. And then the green machine, I'm afraid it got retired. I've only been with Friends of Chintsa since August last year and in the community for a couple of years. So it was also before my time, but yeah, it was, it's got to on its last legs. The local community hub is a set of containers that have a library and a computer lab. So a lot of the machines were moved there, but it means that it's not as mobile as it was when it was in the big crazy green machine. No, right. They were the um, the one food garden that is still going well is the one on the side of the soup kitchen, which feeds anywhere from 30 to 80 children, sometimes more, a meal a day, and trying to address gaps, both not only economic gaps but also parenting gaps. And they set up a relatively good sized garden with a good fence, and they are still maintaining that, and it brings in nice fresh greens and other vegetables for the soup kitchen. Sure. So international volunteers, um, uh, it would depend on the sort of activities that the different projects were involved in. The Unstressed Surf School is pretty regular, so every Saturday the youth meet and they go out, and volunteers could definitely join in with that. Um, uh, the youngsters always enjoy having friends join and be able to, yeah, hear different people's accents and stories from where they are and enjoy being in the water together. And and then it could be that anyone with different sporting skills, such as running or um, various kinds of fitness training and soccer, could help with either the runners and the soccer projects. And then there's potentially possibilities of joining in with some of the other projects when they've got particular events or activities. It's not as volunteer oriented as it used to be in its early years, but with the current setup, obviously things are very restricted because of the virus and that, but yeah, there generally are activities that volunteers could get involved in various ways. Local volunteers, we definitely are involved, and particularly with this COVID-19 project. I've got people making masks for us. I've got folks who are printing for us. We've had to, it's been, yeah. So I printed until I ran out of ink, and then you couldn't buy any more ink. So then it went to somebody else who printed until they ran out of ink, because we were putting out information flyers and getting translations into Xhosa. So people were also helping with translations. And then we've kind of like passed the printing responsibilities around the community to whoever had ink in their printer. And luckily now we can start to buy ink again in level 4. So we should be okay. We made it. We were getting really close to the end of paper and the end of ink. And then folks have been raising funds from family overseas often to use for the food. And then they come and help with unpacking food. The food often gets delivered in bulk, and it needs to be collected, unpacked, put into parcels, and then a system set up that's all COVID safe with sanitizer and masks and all the rest of it to have people come collect. So we've had various people help with that over the time as well. And then, let's see, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the questions. You still quite a big... Yeah, the social activities have taken over more than the conservation focus. So it's one of the reasons why we're very interested in the Green Stewards program, because that would have um, a mix between environment and economic activity, actually, because it would really be trying to boost small scale tourist projects as well, but obviously connected to the local environment, and keeping an eye on the health of the estuary. Chintsa has a beautiful river that runs towards the sea, and it is a lagoon a lot of the time because the mouth is closed up and there have been pollution issues. And so that Green Steward project would be one that would be trying to look at that and seeing what could be done about that. But it's been paused because of the virus as well. Um, yeah, the community is doing some nice work with this COVID-19 project. It's tricky. We have a classic setup in South Africa of the side of the hill facing the sea with a beautiful view is where the well-off people live, and then the side of the hill that at least does have a lovely view of the green rolling hills and the sunset is where the poorer community live. But there's been linkages and engagement between the various parts of the community for years and years, and it has a feel of more integration than a lot of other South African communities that I've encountered, and so it sort of comes and goes a bit, but it feels in some ways as though the virus is providing an opportunity for that to build a bit more. Okay, then, we also, um, um, we also would like, in terms of long-term goals, so for example, Temi with the soup kitchen. Temi is who runs the soup kitchen and started it off. She started as a Friends of Chintsa project initially, and then she got more and more established, and actually at some point went, I've got enough support and I'm big enough that I actually want to become my own non-profit organization. So we still provide a lot of support to them. Our administrator helps them a lot with their bookkeeping still, and they're still learning how to do that clearer and stronger according to all the requirements, which are onerous. And so they're still a partner of ours, but they've gotten big enough to become independent. And Chintsa United Soccer Club has that as a longer term aim as well. So some of the projects are very much wanting to help support them get on their feet, get themselves established, and then take the next step to actually becoming independent as well. And some projects don't want to do that. They like being small. They don't want to have to run a big organization. They love the fact that they can lean on Friends of Chintsa to provide, a trustworthy, responsible financial management system, and they get to, run this volunteer project themselves. So it's a mix of those. And in terms of other skills, our board currently is 6 people, 3 of whom are white, 3 of whom are Xhosa. We would like to increase the Xhosa members, and we would like to also help them develop their skills more to be able to, for example, interrogate financial reports more strongly, and be able to step into positions in the board that are stronger leadership positions as well. Those are some of the longer term. This COVID-19 and the survey we're doing also is going to give us a tool that the community's never had before. I tried to find out in March how many people were in Chintsa to start to try and get my head around, the virus and how it could affect us. No one in the local municipality, no one in the district municipality, no one in the local ward committee could tell me. I had guesses ranging from 100 households to 1,000 households. Our survey is now almost 700 households, and we think we're about 90% complete. So neither of the 100 or the 1,000 guess was right. But you can imagine, how do you as a municipality, I can't get my head around, how do you as a municipality plan to do your work if you don't know how many people you're supposed to serve? And for me, it was like, we have to have that. So now we're going to have that. We're going to know how many households. We're going to know how many people don't have access to running water and use the bush as toilets and don't have proper fences in order to start their own little food gardens, etc., etc. So the information, the aggregate information from the survey is going to be hugely, hugely useful. And it could be used by people in the community who I know there's been groups of people who have wanted to organize for different things before. And they're going to now have access to this information. So my hope is that the survey is going to need to be carefully managed because it could be used manipulatively for political means. And Friends of Chintsa is likely going to play a big role in that. But the information in it could be really a catalyst for other people to use it in various ways, to take various projects forward, from even negotiating with Department of Health for a clinic to be based here locally, which has the Department of Health has, for example, been approached. They've said, no, you don't have enough people in the community because no one can say this is how many people we have. So now we can do that. And so the survey thing is, we could have done it better. Kath, who helps me hugely and is like a mathematical whiz with surveys, we had to do it so fast, and we keep like speaking to each other and going, oh, we forgot that question, and you can't go back and do all those questions again, but it's still going to provide us with so much more information. And then, safety. I feel safer here than anywhere else in South Africa that I've lived. It's not to say that it's perfectly safe, and there has been violence in the location area. What's interesting now is because of the lockdown shut down all the pubs, the shebeens, which are basically small local taverns, and stopped any bottle stores selling alcohol, is that there's been stuff happening behind the scenes, we know that, but it's really minimal. And so alcohol is pretty much dried up, and the violence in the community has disappeared. So there's very interesting conversations now happening among people about, wow, domestic violence is almost null, and other violence and crime as well has gone down substantially. Obviously, if people were really, really hungry and not getting food, we might see a change in that, but currently things are okay. So these are, they're delicate situations. They're not going to be stable. And at some point, alcohol will start to be sold again. But it's giving people an opportunity to sort of reflect on things differently. And so, currently it's very safe. This is not the same in other parts of South Africa, by the way. There's been a lot, initially there was a huge rise in domestic violence in other parts of South Africa during lockdown. We've been fortunate here. And then if folks are visiting, we have two main tourist establishments in Chintsa that serve tourists. One is Buccaneers Backpackers, which is quite famous. It's a really, really amazing spot with an incredible view. And then Crawford's, in Crawford's Beach Lodge, I think they're called, which is a little bit more sort of typical tourist establishment. They both have shuttles that run to the East London airport and into East London. So that's one way for folks who don't want to hire a car to get from East London to us. And I would highly recommend Buccaneers as a great place to stay. And there's also lots of Airbnb options now. People have really got into that. And let's see. I think Chintsa is unique in many ways because of the tourist establishments, but also because of the people that were here. So Buccaneers Backpackers has attracted obviously international clientele, but the way they run it has been on a basis of encouraging people to really hang around for a long time. And then some of them have decided to, so often people would come here and stay for months on end and really put a lot of energy into local volunteer work and then decide to move here. So, for example, African Angels Primary School is run by Lou Billett, an Australian woman who initially came here to Buccaneers. And she has set up a primary school to address education needs in the community that she fundraises for and does an absolutely incredible job with. So, and then there's been people who've had a lot more openness to working with communities and on both sides. So you've had white people with that openness and black people with that openness to work together. And as I noted earlier, it sort of comes and goes, and there's projects that work well, and then things sort of drift apart and that sort of thing as well. But it feels like there's a sort of history in the DNA, if you call it, of the community that seems to bend more towards a healthier level of engagement between different aspects of the community. There's a way in which you'll go into establishments here, and there's, for when they're open, the Barefoot Cafe, for example, is a local cafe, and there's a very mixed clientele that's there from both what we call the location side and the well-off side. And then you'll go into the location to one of the little spaza shops, and you'll find people from the well-off side shopping there because there's such good prices. So it's not deeply integrated. A lot more could happen, but it does feel like it's got quite a special vibe because of that. Thank you, Amakala, for listening and watching. Okay, any more questions or things? Yeah, there's Kath. She's adding more transport options for people coming in. My great pleasure. My great pleasure. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Roger, for posting all the donation options. And if folks get to travel again when this virus hopefully starts to calm down, please do come to Chintsa and look us up, and we'd love to get you connected into community stuff that's happening. And who knows what that will be at that stage, but I've no doubt things will be happening here. Interesting things. Certainly. And thank you again, Expedition Project, for organizing this. Our deep gratitude. Thank you. Okay, folks. Bye.